Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Encore Careers, Navigating Work and Purpose in the Second Half of Life, presented by Home Instead and hosted by the American Society on Aging. We will begin shortly, but first, let's cover a few important points. You can apply for your certificate immediately after today's webinar by using the tab above the presentation screen. To do this, click on Add Membership to select the certificate type or accreditation board you need. If you don't have a license number, simply enter NA. If you prefer, you can also select a certificate of attendance. Please note that if you skip this step, no certificate will be generated. Throughout today's session, there will be checkpoints to ensure active participation, so please be sure to respond to those as they occur. Make sure you're logged in with the email address you registered with, as this allows us to track your attendance. You must be logged in and complete the checkpoints to be eligible for a certificate. Presentation slides are available now in the Materials tab and can also be accessed later in your classroom. The on-demand recording of this webinar will be available in your classroom within 48 hours. For more information, check the FAQs page in the Announcements tab. You can also find the FAQs on the menu in your classroom, as well as in your reminder emails and on our webinars page if you need to access it again. If you have technical issues, the Help tab at the top of your screen will connect you to support. If you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them through the Q&A tab below. We'll do our best to address them in the final minutes of the session. And now I'm excited to introduce today's presenter, Lakeland Eichenberger, a gerontologist and caregiving advocate at Home Instead, with a doctorate from the University of Nebraska. Lakeland is a renowned speaker and expert in elder care. Lakeland, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you've joined me today for our presentation. I'm excited to talk about this topic of Encore careers and navigating work and purpose in the second half of life. And I think that there's no coincidence that this presentation is very close to Ageism Awareness Day. ASA promotes that event coming up next week. Check out their great resources on their website. But I think when we talk about ageism and getting older, we have a lot of assumptions about what that second half of life should look like, or what it's looked like in the past, and how we think of retirement. And really, that concept is evolving and changing. So I'm really excited to talk more about that with you all today, and talk about how people are moving away from that traditional retirement, and they are looking for encore careers or continuing to work into that second half of life. So we're going to dive into all of that in today's presentation. So the objectives for today include some kind of demographic background, and we're going to talk about the numbers of the growing older workforce. We're going to understand also the benefits that work can have in the second half of life. There are a number of benefits to continuing to work past that traditional retirement age. Then we're also going to talk about opportunities that exist for that post-retirement work. And then we're going to talk about how somebody can pursue that new career path and pursue meaningful work in those post-retirement years. So we have a lot to cover, and so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So when we think about working in the second half of life, not everyone is counting down the days until their retirement age. In fact, the traditional retirement age is no longer a firm stop date for many older workers. That road to retirement is changing, and it's looking different for different people. It's no longer kind of that straight, clear path that you retire at age 65 and you pursue kind of leisure activities. Many are really taking kind of new turns in that journey and exploring new opportunities. And while some people do retire at that kind of typical 65-year-old kind of mark in our age trajectory. Many also are, retiring from their kind of traditional careers, but finding those encore careers. They're maybe continuing to work in a full-time capacity. Maybe they're working part-time. Some older adults are kind of pursuing that dream of starting their own small business. In fact, if you look at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, people 65 and older are more likely to be self-employed than any other age group. So we're starting to see more people starting those businesses or kind of working for themselves in that second half of life. We also know that many older adults or people as they age, they volunteer more. And so maybe they retire from a career, but they take on volunteer roles within their community. And if you look again at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average hours spent on volunteer activities for the 65 and older age category was higher than the other age groups, with an average of 94 volunteer hours per year. And much of that time, if you look at kind of the breakdown, is spent serving through religious organizations, which I think is an interesting thing to note. So, there are various ways that kind of work can show up in the second half of life, but we're starting to hear this term encore careers. And really, encore career refers to a change in career in later life. For many kind of would-be retirees, it offers a chance to pursue a professional interest that wasn't a factor in maybe their previous career. Some encore workers still, want to work and contribute with the same kind of drive and vigor as they have throughout their careers, but they might just want to, shift industries, or maybe at this point in time, it's not as much about earning, the salary, but more pursuing work that is meaningful to them. Or maybe it's more of a flexible work schedule, or maybe they want to get out of kind of that high stress work environment and pursue something else. So we're going to talk more about this as we go through today's presentation. But I think what is so interesting is to see how kind of this whole second half of life is really evolving in terms of how people are working and engaging. And then if we look more so at the demographics, the statistics around the 55 and older workforce, over the past decade, there has been a noticeable increase in the number of people working over the age of 55. So if you look at the graph here, you'll see, in 1994, only 12% of the workforce was over the age of 55. Now in 2024, we're seeing 25% of the workforce being that 55 and older age group. I think what's also interesting is the number of younger workers in that age 16 to 24 age category. We've seen a slight decline in that group of workers. So in 1994, it was 17%, and in 2024, it's 11%. And so I think that it's really just interesting to kind of look at the makeup of our workforce and see how it is kind of shifting and changing. But if you look at kind of that 25 to 54 age category, you'll see that still is the largest kind of mid-career group falls into that category. But we know that the fastest group of workers is the 75 and older age group. It's the fastest growing age group in the workforce, and it has more than quadrupled since the 1960s. And it is expected to continue to grow. So this chart shows the various age groups over the span of 2000 to the projected 2030, which really isn't that far away. But it is expected that by 2030, that there is a 96.5% increase in the 75 and older workforce category. So again, it's the fastest growing age group. We're seeing more people continuing to work past that age. And I think this is due to a variety of factors. We're going to talk about this as we go through. But if you think about it, we are living longer. People, we have various health spans, meaning the portion of our life when we are healthy and able to do things like work. We're seeing that, people have longer health spans and longer lifespans. And so, that 65, age cutoff that traditionally we think of when we think of retirement, people get to that age and they think, there's no way I'm slowing down now. I don't want to, take that traditional retirement, and they're really rethinking what that looks like. And so I think that's a big contributor to why we're seeing the 75 and older workforce growing at the rate that it is. What's interesting is we're seeing more kind of surveys and data coming out on this new view of retirement. There was a report in 2021 by Ken Kella and Ken Dykwold, and they found kind of these 4 pillars of new retirement. So they surveyed a group of people, asking them about their view of retirement. And I thought what was really interesting, 28% said that they view kind of that second half of life as time for rest and relaxation. But 56% said that it provides a new chapter in life. So they're really viewing it as an opportunity to maybe reinvent themselves or to take on something new. And so they're not just looking to the second half of life for rest and relaxation. And so this report really kind of honed in on 4 important elements of what they talked about as achieving optimal well-being in kind of those retirement years. And those 4 categories were health, family, purpose, and finances. And if you kind of think about this as these categories as it relates to working past kind of that traditional retirement age, there are so many benefits of working that fall into these various buckets. And so when they kind of did this survey, the category of health, people wanted to have good physical and mental health in that kind of second half of life, those retirement years. And studies have shown that working can help you stay healthy. It can help you stay physically active. It can help you stay mentally engaged. If you think about it, a lot of times you're socializing with others, you're using your critical thinking skills to solve problems in your job. And so those kinds of things can also help reduce the risk of things like cognitive decline. So those are some great benefits of continuing to work. Also in this new view of retirement, the survey respondents said that having family and friends that care about them was really, really important. And actually, the most important contributor to identity in those retirement years was their relationships with their loved ones. And so as I was thinking about this, some people might consider that, working after retirement could take away time from spending time with family, but it could also, provide financially for them to go visit family and friends and stay connected. And so I think that is interesting. And we'll talk in a little bit. One, thing to consider in working past those retirement years is finding that balance of, throughout our careers, we talk a lot about work-life balance, when you're raising children, having that work-life balance. But as you enter those retirement years, you might want to think about work-life balance a little differently. And maybe it's to make sure that you still have time to spend with family, maybe those grandkids, that sort of thing. Also in this kind of new view of retirement, having a sense of purpose in life was an important focus. Back in my graduate studies days, I did a project for our local area agency on aging. They have generally two programs within area agencies on aging: the Senior Companion Program, which is volunteers that earn a stipend to care for other aging adults. And then they have the foster grandparent program, where older adults volunteer to go into school settings to support the young children, and they get a stipend for that. So anyway, I surveyed those groups within our local area agency on aging to find out, why do they do this work? Why do they find it meaningful? And many of them talked about the sense of purpose. One respondent I remember said, "It gives me a reason to get up and going in the morning, and it helps me not to focus on my own problems." So having some sort of work or volunteerism really provides that sense of purpose. And 87% of retirees in this survey said that they want to be useful, and it actually helps them feel youthful. So, having that sense of purpose keeps them young. And so, doing things that are enjoyable, if you can kind of marry the work that you do in the second half of life with that meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, it makes it that much more impactful. And then, of course, there's the financial component of working past those retirement years. It can provide extra income. And for some, it is necessary. Some may not have had the opportunity to save for retirement. And so they do need to continue to work past that traditional retirement age. For some, maybe that have saved, that extra income can be used for things like travel or leisure activities. So it can be kind of the best of both worlds. And it can be used to do things like spoil the grandkids. I remember we had a care professional who said, one of the reasons she wanted to continue working is so that she had extra money to spoil the grandkids, and also help save towards their college down the road. So I thought that was really, really sweet that was her purpose for continuing to work. And so, again, these kind of four elements, kind of according to this report, and I found in others too, kind of help contribute to this new view of retirement. There's also another helpful study that kind of dives into a lot of kind of workforce related information, especially in regards to retirees that work, is the Trans-America Retirement Survey of Workers. So recently, the 24th annual report came out here in 2024. And on the slide here, you'll see the top reasons for working after the age of 65. And I thought this was a really interesting graph to look at, because you can see that the number one reason, 54%, they wanted the income. That was the number one reason for working past that retirement age of 65. But I thought also the ones that followed that were really interesting. So at 51%, they want to be active. At 44%, they want to keep their brain alert. And then tied at 38% were two factors: having a sense of purpose and enjoying what I do. And there were a few more that kind of trail that were concerned that Social Security won't be as much as they expected, that they can't afford to retire because they haven't saved enough, or they need health benefits. So some were financially related, but also some were related to the notion of kind of healthy aging. So I think that is really interesting, just to kind of understand why people continue to work past the age of 65. And in this Trans-America study, they also survey the various generations to see kind of how their responses compare. So they interviewed Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers. And we know that baby boomers are the ones that are closest to entering those retirement years. 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. That's a very common stat that we like to share. But I think it's interesting that when you look at the various elements of life, and you compare the generations, when you look at career, baby boomers, they rank that as a lower priority compared to some of the other generations, which I think that makes sense to me. They're probably closer to retiring or maybe already in retirement. So perhaps their career is not as important. What the boomer generation does rank the highest is enjoying life and being healthy and fit. And so I think that is a really important kind of attitude that the baby boomer generation has, because that's why they're helping to kind of reframe this notion of what retirement is, because they want to continue to enjoy life. They want to continue to be healthy and fit. Many of them may not have saved for retirement, so many of them also have a financial motivator. But perhaps it's not so much about the career itself, but finding work that is meaningful to them. So just a few more stats to wrap this up before we move on to kind of the topic of finding work and how to go about that. These stats really hone in on the baby boomers. They really, again, have that strong sense of purpose at 82%. They consider themselves to be in excellent or good health. 81% of them feel that they are in those categories of good or excellent health. And 56% are currently working or expect to work past the age of 70 or do not plan to retire. So I think that that's also an important thing to understand about the baby boomer generation. They, again, want to have that purpose in life. They want to keep healthy, and they want to keep working, or they don't plan to retire, or maybe they want to continue to work, but just in a different capacity. So as we as professionals encounter older adults that are kind of going maybe through that career change of perhaps retiring from their lifelong career, hopefully we can use some of the information from this webinar to help them kind of do a little bit of kind of soul searching and understand what's going to be most impactful for them in terms of working in the second half of life. Just to kind of hone in again on some of those benefits of working past that traditional retirement age, we've already talked about how it can provide extra income, and also it helps the individual stay engaged. Often boredom is something that older adults want to avoid. I think of my aunt and uncle. They retired from their career and they had owned a business, sold it. My aunt said, I organized every single closet. We redid the kitchen, and then I was bored. So she went on to find a much lower stress, enjoyable job. And she did that for a number of years. And then she kind of retired again, and they moved to a different city. And so now they have a new house that they're kind of working to get organized. But I think that that's just so interesting that, once you retire, doesn't mean that you have to be done working forever. You can continue to stay engaged, in various ways with various careers or volunteering. And along those lines, keeping the brain active. If you've heard the term kind of use it or lose it, we definitely see older adults say that they want to keep their brain sharp and active. Alzheimer's disease and dementia are among the most feared diseases of those that are in that second half of life. And so they really want to keep their brain engaged, and work is one great way to do that. As I mentioned earlier, the social engagement and interaction can be so beneficial. Also, any problem solving and challenges that you have to overcome in the workplace, those are great ways to challenge your brain as well. Also, work can give you, more energy. It can be invigorating to be doing something you're passionate about. Interacting with other generations within the workforce can also be, invigorating and provide, a renewed sense of energy. So it can also be, again, that motivation to get up and moving in the morning, to get out of bed, a reason to get dressed, and get out the door to do something that you enjoy. So just a few more benefits on this next slide. Along the lines of that intergenerational interactions, there is an opportunity to mentor, kind of, both ways, to mentor down to a younger generation, but also to learn from younger generations within the workforce. And older workers, they have a wealth of knowledge and experience that can be shared with younger generations. And so, it is so beneficial to have multiple generations within the workforce for that very reason of experience sharing. I think what's really interesting, there's that movie called The Intern where, is it Robert De Niro? Don't quote me on the actor, but he and Anne Hathaway are in that movie, and he goes back as an intern at Anne Hathaway's company in his older years. And of course, it's a really cute movie. But what is so neat is the intergenerational interactions that take place, and he kind of mentors Anne as she is, experiencing the trials and tribulations of being a small business owner. So it's just a neat depiction of that mentoring that can take place within the workforce. Also, those social connections that I have been mentioning, sometimes when a person does retire, especially if most of their social connections were through the workplace, that can be kind of harmful to their health in that they don't have as many social connections anymore. So, continuing to work or finding that Encore career can provide for those social connections. There's also that physical and emotional health that comes with working. And also, along those lines, a lot of employers have wellness programs or health incentives and benefits that can be provided to their employees. So continuing to stay in the workforce can perhaps connect the older worker to those benefits. But again, the emotional health, that reason to get up in the and moving, those social connections, that sense of purpose really can go a long ways in terms of mental and emotional health. And then the last one, longer life. Research has shown that working longer, there are some correlations to longevity. And, there was an Oregon State University research report put out a while back that found that working after the age of 65 could lead to a longer life or reduce the risk of mortality. So I think that it's really interesting, again, that more attention is being paid to working past the typical retirement age and the benefits that go along with it. Some, however, might be thinking, okay, I want to continue working, but I'm not quite sure what the career options are out there. How do I go about it? Do I need to spruce up my resume? Do I need to get new skills? So for the rest of this presentation, we're really going to transition now to talking about, what kind of career opportunities might exist out there for that Encore career, and then helpful steps that people can take to kind of getting ready to pursue working in that second half of life or transitioning to an Encore career. So let's talk about what those opportunities could be. There's a number of opportunities. A number of people might choose to, instead of being, employed in a traditional full-time capacity, they might transition to freelance work, where they do, a little bit of work here for one company, a little bit for another company, or they transition from a full-time employee to more of a consultant role, where maybe they're consulting on an hourly basis or on a per project basis. So those are opportunities that people can explore. And that also has a great benefit for the employer as well. We talk about kind of the brain drain that happens when older workers that have all that institutional knowledge and experience and wisdom leave the organization, and that wisdom and knowledge leaves with them. Instead, could they transition to a consultant or do some freelance work for the organization to still stay connected and have that wealth of knowledge and information continue to be tied to the organization, or a plan for that, passing down of knowledge. Also, some organizations take on interns that are in their second half of life. So that could be something that could be looked into. That's something that's a little unconventional. You don't often think of an intern being someone older, but you could maybe also think of it as maybe an apprenticeship. Sorry, that's a hard word for me to say, in maybe a new skill or trade that you would want to learn. So it's a great way to kind of maybe try out a new field without having to become perhaps a full-time employee. There's also opportunities in some organizations for mentorship. Again, that passing down of wisdom or knowledge can be so beneficial to employees and the organization. I also mentioned that many individuals have that dream of starting a small business, or maybe as part of their freelance or consulting work, they start kind of a business of their own. And, that entrepreneurship could be pursued. Also, we tend to see that second half of life, people choosing Encore careers that prioritize kind of a higher purpose. So maybe an individual chooses to go into a nonprofit organization, or maybe they want to work within education or healthcare, or maybe there's some sort of cause that they feel very passionate about, like environmental conservation or something of that sort. So again, we're going to be talking about kind of a person's how they can help themselves evaluate what's important to them, and trying to find an Encore career that aligns with those values. But again, they might find that they want to enter a career field that kind of aligns with something bigger than themselves, if you will. So I wanted to share just a couple of stories that I came across of people pursuing Encore careers. The two that I'm about to share do come from AARP's website, so definitely need to give credit to that. They have some great resources for older workers and people pursuing second careers, and I've shared those at the end of today's presentation. But on one of the stories that I was reading as I was preparing for this webinar was Charlotte's story. Her Encore career is the owner of Life Files Professionals. It's a professional organization service. And so how she got to that Encore career was she had a 40-year career as a college professor. She was chair of the office administration department. And with that came a lot of organization skills that she developed. And she also found that friends were coming to her for help organizing, especially important documents related to, second half of life, such as wills and trusts and all of those kinds of things, getting organized in terms of those important documents. And so she went through the AARP's kind of Work for Yourself at 50 Plus program and utilized some of their resources. But she has this organization, Life Files Professionals, and I thought her quote was insightful. She said, "The most important key to my success is efficient organization. My easy to follow system of data management and organizing solutions will reduce clutter while keeping all of your virtual files at your fingertips." So she was able, through her kind of experience, to develop a really efficient system to help her clients organize and navigate the important documents that they would need. And she made a business out of it. So I think, if we reflect on the things that we're really good at, what our skills are, what people come to us for, that might help inform what we might be really good at in terms of an Encore career. Another example of an Encore career Tanya is the owner-operator of Passion to Seed Gardening and program manager for AfriThrive's Farm and Food Education Initiative. And I think that Tanya has a really interesting background. She was born and raised in Zimbabwe and immigrated to the U.S. At a point in her life, and she had a really successful career in telecommunications engineering. But in her retirement years, she turned her childhood passion of gardening into what now is a career and a nonprofit. And so she said, today my farm specializes in a variety of ethnic vegetables, all certified, naturally grown, and cultivated with care, from pumpkin leads to Kiano. Every crop reflects my commitment to preserving authentic flavors and promoting sustainability. So I think that it's neat that she has taken her career. She had a very successful career in telecommunications engineering. She had this passion for gardening, and she was able to kind of marry her passion for business and gardening into a nonprofit that now brings her a lot of purpose. So there's a lot more of these types of stories on AARP's website. So that could be just a great way to find some inspiration if somebody is thinking, well, what do I want to do as my Encore career? And some people, might not want to start their own business or to work full time. They might be looking more for a part-time opportunity. So I wanted to share some popular kind of part-time jobs for working in the second half of life. We see drivers that tends to be a popular job because it requires little training, but there's a lot of variety. So if you think about it, every organization pretty much needs a driver, whether it's a senior living community, whether it's a floral shop. Now our groceries get delivered. Amazon does deliveries. So for those that want to stay active, they want a lot of variety in their day, being a driver of some sort could be something to look into. In our industry of home care, we employ a number of care professionals that are over the age of 65. I think that's one of the neat things about the work we do. We have people that work for us from age 18 up to 80 plus. I think I remember in my years working in our local franchise, there were a few care professionals that were older than some of the clients that they help serve. So for some, that is a meaningful job that provides some extra income because they're helping others. Retail sales person is another popular job, especially seasonal work. We know that around the holidays or depending on the industry, there's often some seasonality to some of that. I think also, I just was thinking about this last night. I took my son to the pumpkin patch, and there were a number of older workers who were helping with like the train ride, and they were passing out stickers to all the kids, and it was just neat to see the intergenerational interactions. And again, that is a seasonal job that isn't all year round, but I could tell that the gentlemen working the trains really enjoyed their job, brought them a lot of purpose and happiness. There's also opportunities in the culinary fields, administrative professionals, also tour guides. If you think about somebody who maybe has a love of history or a love of art, volunteering or working at an art gallery or a history museum could be a great part-time job for them in older years. Or even, your state capitol often has tours. Maybe for those that had a career of working in politics might like a job where they give tours of a place like a state capitol building. Also, that intergenerational interaction might lead someone to pursue childcare or work in the education field. We also see people in clergy or counseling enter that field in the later part of life. Also, libraries. While we get a lot of our books digitally, libraries are often almost like community centers, at least in my community. And so whether it's assisting with classes or reading to kiddos or helping with the logistics of the library, there's could be some great opportunities there. And then also tutoring, taking what you know as a skill and helping others refine that skill. So a few just examples. Home Instead a few years back did a public education program called Unretire Yourself. The website is at the bottom of the slide there. It's unretireyourself.com. But we highlighted a number of kind of Encore career unretirement stories. So I thought I'd just share a couple of them, and you can, of course, go to the website to learn more. But this first story is of Cookie. She works as a home instead care professional. She was the first African-American firefighter on the Tallahassee Fire Department. And she, worked in that career field for a long time, retired. She cared for her husband and realized, wow, I am really good at this. And so she found a career at Home Instead as a care professional. And she talks in her story on the website about she's always loved being around older adults because they have such wisdom. And she had actually worked with older adults often doing fire safety and prevention at the fire department. So she was able to find that Encore career that aligned with her passion and experience. Another one of the stories we highlight is of Dave. He oversees a veteran program at a science and technology museum in his community. He himself was 40 years in the military. He was looking for flexibility and a challenge. And on his story, he talks about the job helps him build on his experience, but also stretches his creativity. He says he's really comfortable with the subject matter, but the application of it was outside of anything that he has done in his past, but he really enjoys working with the veterans and bringing them into the Science and Technology Museum. And then the final one, Diane, her Encore career was an administrative professional at a funeral home. And she said, she talks about her 30-year career as an office manager, but she lost her son when he was really young. And in her story, she talks about after they lost their son, they had to go through a lot of counseling to learn to deal with it and to accept it. And so she feels in her role as administrative professional at the funeral home that there's something in that role she can do to give back to other grieving families, especially the ones that have lost a child. So she's able to give a hug and a pat on the back and really relate to them and say, I know what you've been going through. So I think it's interesting to hear these career stories of how people are taking some of the skills and their life experience and finding a really meaningful job for them. So, it can be helpful to kind of work through some exercises and do some reflecting on pursuing, that post-retirement work. So we're going to go through these 4 categories quickly of searching the soul, assessing passions and skills, making a plan, and then seeking help, training, and resources if you should need it. So the first one, searching the soul. It can be helpful to, whether it's you thinking about this, or again, if you're supporting a client or a family member who's kind of on this path, reflect, what is it that you want to get out of this stage of life? Are you seeking that, traditional retirement of leisure and free time? Would you like to balance that with something meaningful? Reflecting also on your financial situation. Is that going to influence your choice? Do you have the flexibility from a financial standpoint to explore different options? Or, do you have to make a certain amount to help supplement maybe your Social Security or your retirement savings. And so maybe that will influence the type of Encore careers that you look for. You also want to think about, do I want to stay in my current job and maybe work with HR to see if I can transition to part-time or, transition to a consultant? Or do I want to stay, or do I want to switch organizations, or maybe even an entirely new field? Maybe it's that change in direction that you feel like you're needing in this second half of life. So some additional things to think about also are, have you always had, a dream of what you've wanted to do that now you can pursue? Maybe you've always wanted to be a teacher, but you decided, that wasn't the path that was right for you. So you went on to a different career, but, maybe now there is an opportunity in education to be a paraprofessional or a part-time role within the school system that would allow you to, pursue that dream. Or maybe you've had a business idea, or you've wanted to start your own business for the longest time. And now maybe it's time to launch that idea or business. Also reflecting on meaning and fulfillment, think through, what activities and roles do I most enjoy? What aspects of my job or personal life bring me the most joy and satisfaction and fulfillment? And so, if you can think about that and also think through kind of your personal values, how can you maybe align that with your work and life choices in the second half of life? So those are important things to do to kind of search your soul. But you also want to assess, what are your passions and skills? When you think about the work that you do or that you have done, when are you your happiest at work? What tasks and activities bring you the most joy? I know for all of us, there are those activities that bring us a lot of joy. And then there's ones that we kind of have to do that really are draining. So maybe we focus in on those activities, and maybe we find a career that we're able to lean even more into those activities we most enjoy. Also assess, what are your strengths? What do you excel at? What do others say you're good at? Sometimes it can be helpful to get an outside opinion and ask, from others, what are you really good at? You might be surprised by their answer. Also, those things so we have the things that bring us the most joy at work, but what are the things that drain our energy? I think those are important to keep in mind as well. And then, is there something new that you are eager to learn? Could acquiring a new skill unlock a career opportunity for you? So those are some things that can be helpful to think through. Additionally, again, those personal values, and maybe it's not necessarily a paid position. Maybe there's a volunteer opportunity that you want to contribute to, maybe instead of working, or maybe you determine at this point in my second half of life in my career, I do need to, maintain this job for financial reasons, but could there be a volunteer activity that you could also start that would bring you meaning and fulfillment? And then also leverage that experience. How could your past experience and skills enhance your future career choices? I think that, again, as we go through life, we acquire a lot of experience and a multitude of skills. I was just having a conversation with somebody who, has a medical background, but has gone through a number of career changes. And now she's doing sales for a company that uses AI to detect a specific health condition. And she said, gosh, when I was in school for healthcare, I never thought that I'd be working for a technology company, but here I am. And so again, just because you went to college for something, or you went to trade school or got a certificate for one thing, doesn't mean that you can't pursue another skill or passion later in life. So once you kind of do that self-assessment, you search your soul, you assess your skills, then you also do want to make a plan. That can be helpful in kind of keeping you on track, helping you feel organized, and also making sure that you're doing things like inventorying your savings and assets. And understanding the impact of working on things like Social Security. Also, if you are going to make a career change or kind of transition maybe to part-time, you do want to make sure that you're giving yourself a financial runway. Some experts say, 6 months is a good time frame to make sure that you can cover all of your expenses for that period of time to help you through that transition. Because the last thing you would want to happen is to really be stressed about your finances in the midst of a transition. So that's when it can be really helpful to work with a financial professional, a tax professional, to help you work through those types of things, help you analyze your savings, how much that will cover in terms of retirement, how much supplemental income you would need to make through your work that you continue to do, or make sure that you don't make too much to impact your Social Security or other benefits. You also want to, as part of your planning process, think through, do I want to ease into it or do I want to take the leap? Kind of assess, what do I feel ready for? Also, you might explore other side hustles or volunteer projects. Again, a side hustle could be a lot of different things. You hear that, people who maybe drive Uber or deliver for Amazon do it as a side hustle, or Airbnb an extra room in their home. Those are things that potentially could be done for extra income in the second half of life, or to supplement maybe a career that you want to pursue that you're really passionate about, but might not provide the finances that you need. Or maybe you couple your freelance with a few other side hustles to kind of piece together the financial makeup that you need. Also, again, aligning the work with your personal values, thinking through all your career options. But it's also important to also, be realistic, set practical, achievable goals, and also recognize any limitations that might be there, especially if there is a health condition or mobility issues. You want to be, of course, realistic about the type of work you can and cannot take on. But at the same time, don't let that limit yourself, because employers can make accommodations as well. So, and then also, if finances aren't a primary concern, you could always consider volunteering. So thinking through your plan, kind of making a plan, and then also part of that planning, if you do need help, training, or resources, to think about things like upskilling or reskilling. Are there any online courses or certifications that you want to take? I know the On Aging Institute that ASA provides has a lot of great content, coursework that can help you learn about new topics and subjects. There's also community programs and workshops. Your local community college might have programming for those in that second half of life. There might be workshops at your local area agency on aging or career center within your community. You can also utilize things like job search platforms to see, what's out there. You can tap into your support network and do some networking specifically if you're looking to maybe enter a new career field or start a small business. You might definitely want to do some networking. And then, of course, just staying up on literature and resources that relate to the career path or just fuel the personal growth that you're seeking. We do know that there could be some potential challenges as you maybe re-enter the workforce, or you're wanting to transition into that Encore career, or just working in the second half of life. And one of those could be ageism. I think it's really important, though, not to sell ourselves short at any stage of our career as to our skill sets and our experience. and really lean into that, highlight our unique skills and wisdom. And, if ageism is very apparent, making sure that you are if you're within a workplace, reporting those kinds of incidents to, HR and those kinds of things. Another challenge that you might need to overcome is multi-generational workforce. Again, there's a lot of benefits to working within an organization that has multiple generations. So lean into those, the similarities that you have, learning from one another. Those kinds of things can foster problem solving and help to promote inclusivity instead of letting the generational gaps, if you will, create gaps and divides. Other potential challenges, that work-life balance that I mentioned. I think, throughout our careers, we're always trying to juggle that work-life balance. And so as you enter the second half of life, you also want to make sure that that is top of mind as well, making sure that you are able to maintain that healthy work-life balance, make sure that you're able to kind of meet your own objectives of working in fulfillment, but also enjoying the second half of life. And then also there could be chronic conditions or health issues that come up over time. You might try as best you can to plan ahead for those types of things. Talk with your employer to see if there's any modifications that can be made, and help you still be successful in that role. So those are some potential challenges that could arise. As you kind of think through this and work through it, having a plan can help you as you navigate this journey. So you can, take action by starting to explore the options that are available, do those self-inventories. Also stay adaptable. As you kind of go through this process, you might have to reassess your goals or interests as life evolves. You might have a change, like the passing of a spouse that might impact your plan over time, or you might have decide to make a move to another community, and that may impact your plan. So assessing along the way and kind of being adaptable is important. And then embrace that positivity that the second half of life can offer. Make the most of it. It can be really a neat time to explore those passions and to kind of reinvent yourself. And so, approaching it with a lot of thoughtfulness can really help make that transition or that Encore career successful and meaningful. So before we wrap things up, I did want to provide some resources. There are a number of resources on this slide. I think I wanted to point out just a few of them. I've listed out some of AARP's websites, which have a lot of great tools and resources. I also wanted to point out some additional resources that I really haven't covered yet. Midlife workshops, that's another kind of growing trend where people at kind of mid points in life are going to workshops or retreats to kind of go through some of what we've talked about today, that self-assessment, help them kind of figure out, okay, what is going to be the next step for me? So there is a link to a website there. That's one of, I'm sure, a number, but I've come across in my career where people are attending workshops to kind of help them figure out, okay, what is next for me? So there are some great resources out there. And so connecting with the resources and creating your plan can help make this transition into an Encore career in the second half of life seem like a positive opportunity and not something that's as daunting or overwhelming. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me today to talk about this topic. I'm sure if we had time, all of you could contribute some of your own stories of retirement or Encore careers, or I would be so curious to learn if you yourself are at that point where you're wanting to reevaluate, or if you work in a position where you support others. But I think at some point we'll all be at this stage in our life where we're evaluating, okay, I'm at about the midpoint of life. What do I want the second half of my life to look like? And it can be scary to kind of take a leap or to change course. Change is hard. But finding that meaning, passion, purpose that aligns with work can make it feel like it's not work at all. So, we've all heard that phrase, I'll never work a day in my life because I love my job so much. Wouldn't that be, ideal to have in the second half of life? So if we can provide people with resources and information to help them work towards that, what a wonderful second kind of Encore career that could be for that person. So thank you all so much. I know, Victoria, I didn't leave any time for questions. I'm so sorry, but I'll put my email up here. And if anyone has questions, they can definitely email me.
That's okay. Thank you so much, Lakeland. Thank you all for joining us today. And a special thank you to Home Instead for making this session possible. Don't forget to check out our FAQs page. Again, that's linked in the announcements tab for details on the platform and how to claim CEs. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact ASA at institute@asaging.org or visit our website for information about upcoming webinars. Be sure to mark your calendars for our next session, which is on November 6th, the Evolving Landscape of Caregiving Trends, Innovations, and Challenges. Thank you again, Lakeland, and everyone here today. We truly appreciate your participation. Have a great day, everybody. And remember to celebrate Ageism Awareness Day. We have excellent resources on our website and toolkits for that as well. Bye-bye.